Hi, I'm Lily, and before I start my story, please don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more about how I overcame one of the most challenging nights of my life. What I'm about to share completely changed my world. Thank you for being here to listen. It all began on a night that was supposed to be special. The evening was meant to celebrate a milestone at Mrs. Thomas's luxurious home. Her house was breathtaking, with grand chandeliers casting a warm glow over an elegantly set dining table. Each piece of fine china sparkled under the soft lights, making everything feel magical. The kind of magical that made you believe the night would go perfectly. I was excited. I had worked hard for years and had just been promoted to senior marketing director. This was a huge achievement for me, and I couldn't wait to share the news with everyone, especially my husband, Adam, and his family. As I stood in front of the mirror, I adjusted my dress, smoothing out every crease, and took a deep breath. I told myself, this is my night too. They'll be proud. As we sat down to appetizers, I could feel my nerves building. I leaned over to Adam, who gave me a reassuring smile. That was all I needed. With a confident voice and a big smile, I announced, I've been promoted to senior marketing director. But instead of cheers, the room went silent. The smiles vanished, and every pair of eyes turned toward me. Mrs. Thomas, Adam's mother, was seated at the far end of the table. Her lips pressed into a tight line, and her eyes narrowed. The warmth in the room seemed to disappear. She leaned toward Adam and said, just loud enough for me to hear, "Is this what we raised you for? To let your wife overshadow you?" Her words hit me like a punch. I glanced at Adam, hoping for his support, but the encouraging smile he'd given me earlier was gone. His hand, which had been holding mine under the table, slowly pulled away. Trying to save the moment, I smiled and said, "This is a great opportunity for us, Adam. The raise will help us in so many ways." Before I could finish, Mrs. Thomas cut me off. "What about starting a family, Lily?" she asked sharply. "Do you really think money can replace the joy of having children?" I was stunned, but before I could respond, Adam joined in. His voice, colder than I'd ever heard, said, "Lily, when are you going to slow down and settle into family life? This career isn't everything." My heart sank. This was the man who had always been proud of me, who had celebrated every step of my journey, and now he was standing against me. "I thought you were proud of me," I whispered, my voice trembling. The rest of the evening was a blur of tense conversations. The once celebratory atmosphere had been replaced with icy silence. Even as the main course was served, the tension lingered. I felt like an outsider in a room filled with people who should have been my biggest supporters. When dessert arrived, something unexpected happened. Adam suddenly stood up, throwing his napkin onto the table with a loud thud. Everyone turned to look at him. "You should know your place, Lily," he said, his voice echoing in the room. "You're my wife, not my competitor." His words hung in the air. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My hands trembled as I stood up, trying to steady myself. "Being your wife doesn't mean I have to give up my dreams, Adam. I deserve respect, not this," I said, my voice shaky but firm. Before I could process what was happening, Adam's expression darkened. He raised his hand and, in a moment that would haunt me forever, struck me across the face. The slap echoed through the room, leaving everyone frozen in shock. I reached up to my cheek, feeling the sting spread across my skin. The pain wasn't just physical, it was the pain of betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak. Without a word, I pushed my chair back, the sound of its legs scraping against the floor slicing through the silence. I walked out of the room, my heels clicking against the marble floor. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew that my life with Adam was over. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my skin, and I closed the door softly behind me. That simple click felt like the end of a chapter. I drove away, watching the house grow smaller in my rearview mirror. My chest felt tight with a mix of fear and relief. For the first time in years, I felt something new. Freedom. It was small, a flicker, but it was there. The next morning, I woke up in my small apartment. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and for the first time I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed with messages from friends who had heard whispers about the previous night. Concerned texts filled the screen, but I ignored them. My priority was clear. I picked up the phone and called a divorce attorney. My hands shook as I dialed the number, but my voice was steady. "I need to file for divorce," I said. "Understood," the attorney replied. "Can you come in this afternoon to discuss the details?" "Yes, I'll be there," I said, hanging up with a sense of resolve. There was no turning back. At work, I buried myself in tasks, using the routine to distract myself. My boss, Mr. Brandon, noticed my distracted demeanor and approached me with concern. "Is everything all right, Lily?" he asked gently. "I'm dealing with some personal issues, but I'll manage," I replied, forcing a small smile. "If you need time off, just let me know," he offered kindly. "Thank you, but keeping busy helps," I said. That evening, my friend Mary invited me for drinks. As we sat at the bar, I poured my heart out, sharing every detail of my crumbling marriage. Mary listened, her presence a comforting reminder that I wasn't alone. "You're stronger than you think," she said, her voice filled with encouragement. When I got home, I found several missed calls from Adam. My heart raced as I debated whether to respond. Finally, I sent him a single text. "I've filed for divorce. Please respect my space." His reply came almost instantly. "Can we talk, please? I didn't mean it. I'm sorry." I stared at the message, my emotions swirling, but I knew my decision was final. "I need space, Adam. Good night," I replied. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. My career flourished, with new opportunities coming my way. I was invited to lead workshops and speak at conferences, sharing my journey and the lessons I'd learned. One day, a colleague suggested I write a book about my experiences. The idea intrigued me. Meanwhile, whispers about Adam began to circulate. His behavior hadn't gone unnoticed, and his once strong reputation was crumbling. One afternoon, I received a text from him. "Can we meet? I need your help." Against my better judgment, I agreed to a brief meeting. When we met, Adam looked like a shadow of his former self. "I'm sorry, Lily," he said, his voice low. "I've lost everything. Can you help me?" I looked at him, feeling a mix of pity and resolve. "You made choices, Adam, and now you're facing the consequences." "I can't rewrite the past for you," I said firmly. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure. Adam's struggles were his own, and I was no longer responsible for carrying his burdens. My focus was on my future, a future full of possibilities. Every challenge I'd faced had shaped me into the person I was. I had turned pain into power, using my experiences to inspire others. This was my journey, and for the first time, I felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Weeks later, I stood on stage at a packed auditorium, speaking at a conference about resilience and overcoming adversity. My voice carried through the room as I shared my story, each word resonating with the audience. The applause that followed was overwhelming, a testament to how far I'd come. After the event, a young woman approached me, her eyes shining with admiration. "Thank you for sharing your story. It gave me hope," she said softly. Her words reminded me why I had chosen to be open about my journey. It wasn't just about healing myself. It was about inspiring others to find their own strength. Back at work, I continued to pour my energy into building a mentorship program for young professionals. Each session brought me closer to the realization that I could create something meaningful from my pain. Watching others grow and thrive became a source of immense joy. One afternoon, as I sat reviewing proposals at my desk, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a publisher I had connected with earlier. "We'd love to discuss your story as a book," it read. My heart raced as I replied, feeling a mix of excitement and disbelief. The idea of sharing my journey on a larger platform felt daunting, but it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. Over the next few months, I worked tirelessly on the manuscript, pouring my heart into every chapter. The book's release brought a new wave of opportunities, invitations to speak at international events, features in magazines, and connections with inspiring individuals filled my days. I was no longer defined by the hardships I had faced. I was defined by how I had risen above them. Looking back, I realized that my story was never just about overcoming adversity. It was about transformation, growth, and finding the courage to live authentically. The life I was building wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that made all the difference.